Imagine this: a nation living in constant fear, crops stolen, homes destroyed, families starving. And then, from the shadows of fear, rises an ordinary man, threshing wheat in secret, unaware that he is about to be chosen as a warrior who would bring freedom to his people. This is the story of Gideon, a man who doubted himself, tested God, and yet led a handful of men to defeat an army so vast it seemed impossible. If you've ever felt outnumbered, overlooked, or unqualified, this story is for you. How? Stay with me. Darkness hung over Israel for 7 long years. Each harvest ended the same way: thunder without rain, footsteps without mercy. The Midianites rolled in like a sandstorm, devouring fields, stealing livestock, and leaving families with nothing but fear. Hope was a memory, courage a rumor. But God had not forgotten his people. Hidden in a hollowed winepress, a man threshed wheat in secret. His name, Gideon, the youngest son of a small clan, the quiet kind who worked with his head down. He was not a general. He was not a legend. He was a survivor. Then the story of his life took a dramatic turn. An angel of the Lord sat beneath an oak in Ophrah and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Mighty warrior? Me? Gideon looked around, almost expecting someone else to answer. He whispered the question many of us carry.
If the Lord is with us, then why has all this happened?
The answer was not a debate. It was a calling. Go in the strength you have. I am sending you to save Israel. Gideon's heart pounded.
But I am the least in my family, and my clan is the weakest.
But God does not search for resumes. He awakens destiny. I will be with you, the Lord said. Still, Gideon asked for a sign. He prepared bread and meat, placed them on a rock, and as the angel touched them with a staff, fire leapt up from the stone and consumed it all. And then the angel vanished. Trembling, Gideon built an altar and named it Jehovah Shalom, meaning the Lord is peace. That night, fear met obedience. God's first mission for Gideon was not a battlefield, it was his backyard. The Lord instructed Gideon, saying, "Tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole beside it." So under cover of darkness, Gideon took 10 men and pulled the idol to the ground. As the village woke up and saw Baal destroyed, they angrily inquired, "Who did this?" When they discovered it was Gideon, they demanded his death. But his father stepped forward and said, "If Baal is a god, let him defend himself." From that day, Gideon was called Jerubbaal, meaning, "Let Baal contend." Then came the rumble of war. Midianites and Amalekites gathered in the valley like locusts, their camels beyond counting, their tents like a sea. The Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon. And when he blew the trumpet, men answered from Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. But fear is stubborn. Gideon laid out a fleece and begged for assurance from the Lord, saying,
"Let the fleece be wet, the ground dry."
It was so. He then requested again,
"Let the fleece be dry, the ground wet."
And it was so again. 32,000 men stood ready for Gideon. But God looked at them and said, "Too many. If Israel won with numbers, they would worship themselves." And then Gideon inquired, "Whoever is fearful, go home." 22,000 turned back. 10,000 remained. But God said again, "Still too many." Down at the water the men drank. Those who knelt were dismissed, and those who lapped the water, alert and ready, 300 of them, were chosen. That night, God leaned close to Gideon's fear. "Go down to the Midianite camp and listen." Gideon crept through the darkness with his servant and heard 2 soldiers speaking. "I had a dream," one said. "A barley loaf rolled into our camp and struck a tent, and it collapsed." The other replied, "This can be nothing but the sword of Gideon. God has given Midian into his hand." Gideon fell to his knees and worshipped. He returned to the camp and whispered strategy in the dark. No swords for the front line, no chariots, just trumpets and clay jars with torches hidden inside. As midnight approached, Gideon's 300 men surrounded a sea of tents. Gideon raised his hand, and the night shattered. Jars smashed like thunder. Torches blazed. Trumpets screamed across the valley. "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." Panic erupted. In the chaos, the enemy turned their blades on each other. The countless were cut down by confusion, not steel. Israel surged forward. Ephraim seized the fords of the Jordan and captured the Midianite princes, Oreb and Zeb. But the pursuit pressed on, across the river, exhausted yet relentless. In Succoth and Penuel, Gideon begged for bread for his weary men. The towns refused. Even victory tests the heart. At last, Gideon cornered the Midianite kings, Zebah and Zalmunna. He confronted them for the deaths they had ordered, for the blood they had spilled. Justice came, swift as a drawn breath. When the dust settled, the people begged Gideon to rule. "Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson." But Gideon answered with a line that should be carved in stone. "I will not rule over you, nor will my son. The Lord will rule over you." Yet even heroes are human. Gideon asked for gold earrings from the plunder and made an ephod, a priestly garment, and placed it in his hometown. Israel, drawn to symbols more than to God, began to worship it. A snare was set. Still, the land had peace for 40 years in the days of Gideon. When he died, the people drifted again, forgetting the God who rescued them, and the house of Gideon who risked everything. But the heartbeat of the story remains. God met a fearful man in a hidden place and turned him into a deliverer.
If you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.